Charlotte Lewis, creator and host of Share with Charlotte podcast, where emphasis is placed on finding balance in relationships. I want to welcome you back to another episode. And just before I dive into what that is and speak more on that, let me just encourage you to go back to my previous episode that I did last week, and that was entitled "What Dictates Your Happiness?" Peace, please. And the reason I chose that subject title is simply because of what man and what society place on us as individuals, that we need to be always chasing our happiness, and happiness through all the stuff that you can gain or all the people you can pick up along the way, where we allow things and people to dictate our happiness. And so we chase a lot of that because that's the kind of pressure that is placed on us. And if you don't have that, or you don't have the right people in your life, or you don't have the stuff, then you looked at very differently. And so, but I'm just saying what we lack and what people don't encourage enough of is chasing the creator himself, and that is God. And so I just wanted to place so much emphasis on just not getting things twisted and not putting people and things before him. And neither, and not to say that being happy isn't important, because it is, but having peace is even more important. So I hope you either listen to it or whether you take the time to watch it as a video, either way. But I just want you to hopefully be a part of that episode with me and just be encouraged. Okay, so now let's move into this particular new episode. And this particular one is called Finding Harmony Through My Journey. And this particular guest, which I'm so thankful to have him and so proud of this young man. And he's someone very special and dear to me, simply because he's my firstborn. He's my oldest son. And so when I was doing the last episode, he came to mind as, the more I was speaking about that what dictates your happiness, peace, please. And so I actually asked him, I said, you have a really terrific testimony to share that I know people can really um, be influenced positively by your story, but also wanted you to be encouraging to other people. He was just sharing some things with me. And so he just said, Mom, I have no problem sharing my truth. I do it all the time with other people because it's not just my story or my testimony. It's because I am to use it for the good and to glorify God. So I was just thankful, that he would just didn't hesitate to say, I want to share my story and I will share my story. And he thanked me for allowing him this platform to do that. And so I'm just so thankful and so proud of him for what God is doing in his life and how his level of obedience toward God, it just really warms my heart. And I think I can speak for any mother that, have seen their child go through some things and just see the transformation, how it just warms your heart to see your child being transformed into something so beautiful. And so I want to just introduce him. His name is Paul Edward Lewis Jr. He's the oldest son. And I want to first, if you have not yet seen Filling Away the Pain, he's the one I speak of in those particular episodes. And that's the second and third episode. And I share some personal things uh, about my relationship with him and during his childhood years. And so do want to encourage that before I bring him on. So without further ado, let us bring on Paul Lewis Jr. and let's hear his testimonial. Thank you.
First off, thank you for having me.
You're
As far
welcome.
as where I would like to start, I'll probably say I'll start when I actually started my journey, which is me leaving Dallas and actually moving to East Texas to seek solitude, to seek time with God and reset and transition into a different, I would say a different level of where I was at. I knew where I had been is not where God wanted me to be. And so I had to get away from distractions and get away from everything that I was used to I guess be uncomfortable in order to grow and get closer to him.
But what at any point in time in your life during that period of time that you would leave the big city of Dallas area to move to a small town? What was really going on in your life?
So I was actually in a relationship that I feel like God was not. he did not co-sign, basically. I felt
Yeah.
like I was in a space to where I was satisfying the flesh. I was in a space to where I knew what I wanted. I felt that I could obtain these things on my own. And because life felt good, things were going well, it felt like it was him. But you can still have beautiful moments and it not be a beautiful outcome. And that's exactly what I went through. And so being in that space, um, he started doing things in my life to where I could tell that he was there started to finally be pushback. He gave my free will for so long, and so I was up for so long, it just felt right. And then once the pushbacks came, then I was being blatantly told to remove myself and disconnect. And once you get comfortable, it's like having a band-aid on for too long. I mean, the longer you let it sit on there, the harder it is when you pull it off. You know, that pain of them hairs that's stuck on there. And so I was in that space to where I didn't have a job. I lost my car. When I lost my car broke down. Um, there's a few things going on at that time, and then and the relationship I was in started seeing turmoil, and so God was asking me to remove myself, and I was comfortable. The things that I did not have, the individual that I was with had, so that became my security blanket. I started relying on man to be my safety net, as opposed to having faith in God. And man only is going to be around for so long as well. God never gets tired of you, but people do. And so
So,
she fled. He said, okay, since you're not going to leave, I'm going to remove them.
mhm.
And so you're going to get kicked out the nest, whether you jump or you're forced out.
And I remember during that time prior to all of that, I call it you was basically kind of basically living your best life. Like you said, you was up, and life was good at the time. Describe that life though. That
Oh, man. Life was wonderful.
Mhm,
I was working for a company. I
mhm,
say I was working for Chase. And man, nice signing bonus. I also was in a position to where I was making six figures. I've never made six figures on a base before. I've commissioned and built my way up there that way, but no, to where I was just a 9 to 5, go to work, you clock in, clock out, and every 2 weeks your check is gonna hit, and you're grossing six. And so, being in that space, I was always good with money management, but it was the management of what God gave me that I was not good with. And so being in that environment, of course, I was living my best life. I was shopping, I was traveling, paying tithes, putting money away. I still wasn't actually doing a lot of things that I felt like would be irresponsible behavior, but I do think that there were things that I should have done better with me making the revenue that I was making. And so that's part of the up. And so losing a job of that magnitude, I mean, you're gonna run through your savings pretty quick. I didn't just jump right into another job because I did so well with saving and my finances. But it's not the long term that really impedes your growth. It's the daily routines of bad behavior. Over time, you look at the week go by, a month, and next thing you know, yeah, things start chipping away. And so it was the behavior that I had that was not consistent, that didn't make good decisions day to day at times.
yeah, because I remember the time that you were going through that and you were living, um, what I call your best life. And I'm just saying your best life because through man's eyes, money in the bank, six figure, plus you're getting bonuses. You had the girl, you had the nice place to live, you're traveling, you had all these worldly things that was going on in your life that was feeding your place of happiness. And, and you're right. And I spoke about that in my last podcast, my episode, and that is a lot of everything that takes you high, take you up is the very same thing a lot of times that would take you low. And so, and you are epitome of what that clearly what I was speaking of, because you had all the stuff and all of that. But I do remember during that period, too, Jay, and that is when you were trying to find that place of solitude and find it. And it's like God would not open a door for you. I mean, even though it took you a while, but even when you really was trying so hard to get that job, Can you share that with us, please? What that was like
To get, when you
before
say
you
get
went,
that,
before you went to East Texas, and you was
um,
applying for positions, yeah.
so as far as getting it, I mean, that position kind of came on the heels of me. Well, I'm not even sure what space I was in, but me working at Chase just really just came. I was working at SBA prior to that. And so being during that season wasn't necessarily a turmoil season for me. Things started unraveling after Chase.
Right.
But I will say that after Chase, that was when God was trying to remove me. And so he was
Mhm.
blocking
Mhm.
everything after that. And
Exactly.
so if that's what you're referring to, then
That's what I'm
yes,
referring to. Yes.
because he was not a lot. He did for the reasons that I think he knew she would stay. That financial stability, the provider, things of that nature. Even though she was well off and she was good at what she did.
Mhm.
That was something that he wasn't going to allow me to obtain because he was trying to sever that relationship. So regardless of how hard I worked, and I feel like God was working in me because at this
Mhm.
time, of course, I'm using God, utilizing him more. I'm trying to bring the relationship on track, get him in the midst of it. But you know, there's not enough prodding and probing that you can do whenever someone is not for you. And so that's one thing that he showed me, that my efforts are going to fall by the wayside. I don't have
Mhm.
this for your future.
I'm totally in agreement because I watched that and during that course of time, Coach, we was talking, and even as much as you trying to put the effort in to find that next place of employment, you're right. God blocked every opportunity, every opportunity. And I want to share this with you, and I think I've shared it with you personally, but I'm gonna share it again just for the sake of other people listening. And that is when you were going through all of that, and as a mother and as a praying mother, I would pray for you. I would pray for you all the time because I knew your struggles and I knew that you were going through so much trying to find that place for you. But I also knew that God was doing something in you. And what I was praying for during that course wasn't about the job. I wasn't praying like Lord bless him with a job. You know, he need to pay his bills. You know, he got his son, he got child. I wasn't praying for that. I was really praying for your heart and you. That was a state of humility. Because one thing that God does when he brings you to that place of humility, and that's when that place of where you humble, and that's when he can do his best work in you. And that's what I pray for truly for you is that state of humility. So God can do his best work in you. Because I know your heart. I know you. I raised you. So I know that which God needs to pour back in you, you had. It's just that it's got buried underneath so much other stuff that it had gotten away and other things had taken precedent over it. Like you said, you were still paying your tithe. That's still big until you couldn't pay your tithes. That's still big. So you because you know God. You still had a relationship, but you wasn't to the state of humility where it was humble to where he's saying, but what I have for you, I need to break you. I need to take you to a place of brokenness because I want to reshape you and I want to rebuild you because I know the man that I have destined for you to be. Can you expound any more on that? What I just
I
shared?
can. And I'm actually going to say, I think it was so. I don't think for me, one thing that you instilled in us is humility. I don't feel like I steered too far from being humble. I steer far from, I feel like I have a purpose that is so big that everyone is not supposed to go with me. And I feel like I was getting so far off track from the purpose that he gave me that the foundation was there, but the direction wasn't. And so it's like you having good intentions. Imagine
Mhm.
the three wise men going to see Jesus being born, but they go in the wrong direction because
Mhm.
they lost sight of who they're supposed to be following and their
Mhm.
obedience. And so
Mhm.
it became really more so a matter of you have the right stuff, but you're going in the wrong direction. And so
Mhm.
I need you to get on board. I don't want her to go with you. I don't want you to get attached to these things. I don't want you to be out here just
Mhm.
too too free spirited to where you are in the long run. I gave you a good opportunity on earth, but now that you're
Mhm.
coming to see me, you didn't accomplish the things that you had, I mean, that I had set for you. You accomplished your own goals and your own dreams and aspirations. But if you knew what I had for you, you would abandon those plans a long time ago.
Mm. Exactly. And I think that's where when God stripped everything away from you, and that was to redirect you. And I know you've never lived in East Texas, so that's you, but I took you down there many times, all of you. And so, but you went there and describe that place for you once you got there.
So I moved to Mount Pleasant first. And I enjoyed Mount Pleasant. I had to adjust being a city person going to the country. I did make some decisions that I feel like wasn't in my best interest, but I had good intentions. And I will say God showed me that sometimes you may not go through circumstances that you necessarily want to be in, but it's for a good cause. It's for a cause that's bigger than you.
Mhm.
It's you doing my work. And
Mhm.
so I did meet some people down there that I felt like, now that I was on my journey, I was, pouring into. But as far as moving to Mount Pleasant, I enjoyed the serenity. I enjoyed the tranquility. I used to go to a lake and I used to read the Bible and talk to God and just get closer to Him. And being in that space allowed me to really just start experiencing Him for myself, being one on one with God and with His creation. And so that's pretty much all my teachings that I've learned and get grasped along the way. I think I was probably the biggest sponge for him when I moved to East Texas. And so being in the space to where I'm talking to him every day. There's nothing else going on. I mean, it's East Texas. And so you got nothing but time with God. And it was necessary in me finding myself.
Mhm. Yeah, and you also got rebaptized while you were down there,
I
and
did.
joined the church, right? And that was
Yeah.
rededicating your life back to Christ. And that was huge, which you shared with me that this is still where you pay your tithes and, and you still talk with the pastor, down there, but that was huge. So your dad and I, we loaded up on Easter Sunday and we were there for your baptism, which we were just so proud that you want to rededicate your life because as a young child, you were baptized, but that was because there was a choice made as a young child, but now you're a man making that same choice, but with a total different meaning behind it because it's so much more impactful as a man than where you were baptized as a child. And so that was a very special moment for me and your dad to see you because I know that was all part of your journey to rededicate your life back to God. And so that just filled our heart, Jay, seriously, to watch that happen and just be a part of that special moment for you.
Thank you. Definitely want to shout out C.D. Mitchell, pastor at Mount Moriah. I realized once I went down there and got closer to God that I wanted to abandon my old lifestyle, shed my old skin, and
Mhm.
walk with a newness. And I knew I was more inclined. I was more knowledgeable, and so some things that I did just growing up, you learn by trial and error, regardless of how great your parents are. They're not going to ever educate you on everything because their life is not yours. Their upbringing, environment, parents, all that. And so I had to go find my own self, and I realized a lot of things that I knew I could have did better. And when I got to East Texas, I wanted to be a new person, not just speak new and move new. I needed God to dip me and make me new. And so that was pretty much my new life. That's where I feel like life started for me.
Beautiful. I love that. And I wanted to share too that I appreciate it. I know you do too, the family support that you received from our family while you were down there. But everything that God allowed or created in that path of you in your transition and your transformation, it was so strategically orchestrated. He really did. to get you to that place. But I want to, and let me just say this before we move into this other part of it, and that is, Dallas offered the stuff, prior to, you losing your job and then finding your place where you in a movie. But Dallas offered the stuff, like I said, the money and the trips and the girl and the nice place to live and, going out to restaurant, the nicest of restaurants and, the stuff that man
Mhm.
decided and has somehow, to the point of just where I'm not gonna use the word maybe brainwashed, but it's to the point that it's almost feel like if you don't have that, then you're not in a state of being happy. So, but the sad thing is you can have all of that and still not be in a place of happiness. Um, and again, the very thing that can bring you high can also bring you to your lowest. And so, but the person and the man that you are for God, um, you're taking it also to a level that I know God is well pleased with, and that is sharing your testimonial because you want to inspire and encourage and help other people through their journey. Because just like my story, and I have many, my stories is not my own story. It's for any and everybody that can help along the way so I can share it. So tell us about you, how you use God testimonials to help other people.
I think I use testimonies in a way to where people more times than not at one point either thought like me, moved like me, probably had similar scenarios, situations, got
Mhm,
caught in some of the same traps.
mhm,
And I know for me, being in a position where things felt right, what looks good is not always God. And sometimes those
yes,
things are God. And you have to be still and be quiet in order to hear which one he's speaking of and to be able to differentiate between the two. Because the
yeah,
devil is also very sly. He's been around for a very long time. There's nothing that we can do as people that can outfoil him. I mean, he's the master deceiver. And
mhm,
so you have to really be in you have to really be in a space of I don't want to use I'm trying to see what word I want to use. You have to be able to receive what he's saying and you have to know it's from him. He speaks to us in different ways, but you have to know however it is that you ask for him to speak to you in, or however he typically speaks to you, whatever fashion that is, that's the way that you know that he's speaking to you. And so getting in that environment, knowing that I've been in those spaces before, that is what I feel like I've been able to help people with, whether it comes down to the money, whether it comes down to again being able to say I've dated my fair share of beautiful women. I don't think I feel like whatever he gave me, whenever he sprinkled whatever it was in heaven in the spirit form before he gave me the body. He gave me a lot of riz, a lot of charisma, a lot of things that I feel like a lot of people just lack. And it's people who speak to me about, hey man, I want to improve in this area, or what do you do for this and that? And the people seek my counsel a lot. And things that people don't take for granted, I feel like at some point I used to take for granted. And so being in a space to where you get something easy or you're used to getting what you want, you don't take those things serious at times, or you can easily fumble those things. And I think that's the space that I find myself speaking to people more from, because things are valuable. Anything God gives you is valuable, and He can have something for you, like He means that for you, but because you fumbled it, He's going to give it to somebody else, and whatever you don't take care of will be stripped away. And that's one thing that I had to realize, that yeah, you can pray for something, but be ready for what you pray for. Be ready to make those changes. Be ready to look within. Be ready to look in the mirror and modify yourself. Because when you are asking God to do something, His something comes with also molding and shaping you. He's not just building that individual that you're praying and asking Him for. He's also building you for y'all to be one. And whatever y'all goal is, ambition, whatever, well, really, whatever God's goal is, which is the union for it to be, you ought to even meet. You have to be in a space to receive that. And you have to have a partner that when it's time to go, she takes a step.
And just listen to you say that, um, because God timing is also God's timing. You know, when any of those things are to take place, it's on him, and as long as we don't get ahead of him, you know, because like you said, what God has for you, it really is for you. But everything is definitely within his timing. I know you're real big on your devotion time. And I really love, because you know, we talk, you know, often on that, and you're somebody really committed on giving that time to God.
I am. Two reasons. One is I got tired of bumping my head and just spinning my wheels. I don't want to just be moving throughout life aimlessly. I want to get to my goals and I want to get to my blessings on time. Whatever he has for me, I want to receive it. Whatever I'm supposed to do or wherever I'm supposed to go, I want to make sure that I end up there. That should be my destination, not my own seeking of my own end. And so that's one thing. The second thing for me is through devotion, I learned that I can be so favored and near and dear to God's heart that he can protect generations behind me. And so I don't know what my son is going to do. I don't know the decisions he's going to make, but I know through David, King David, the David that
Mhm.
slayed the Goliath, he had a mighty son named Solomon, and Solomon was cutting up. But because David was so faithful to God, he told him, I will forever protect the generation behind you because of your loyalty to me. And so Solomon never really experienced the true wrath of God. He received gentle punishment because of David's faithfulness. And so it's way bigger than me now. I'm living for my son and my son's son or daughter or whoever. And so, or even for my wife or her children, I want whatever God has for me to not only be so beautiful in His eyes that hey, I got you, but I'm going to make sure that everyone behind you, I'm going to get him a pass because I am super and overly pleased with your behavior, your commitment with bringing people to Christ as well as doing kingdom work.
That's beautiful. I love that. So, your commitment is beyond just you, you know,
Absolutely.
but it's also for your children. I mean, your son rather, and then that the future wife that God gives you, and who and your grandchildren and your great grand whoever goes ahead of you. And you're so right, because really, and you can see generational curses based on what somebody did, and it's a continuous cycle until that cycle's really broken. Can that be blessed? And so I love that. I love that spirit you have, but I also love the intimate relationship that you have with him. And I know we spoke when we were sharing, and that is your place of harmony and the state and where you are. And I know and going back to you had the stuff, but you had a place in life where you had the least of stuff, but you have the best of what you need. Can you elaborate more on that?
Well, yes, God, he's promised us that he's going to provide our daily bread. And so anything that I was seeking outside of that is just me trying to get in God's way. I was in a space to where I was doing a lot more of, I don't want to say, I don't want to word this. I was doing a lot more of making sure that I was putting things away for a rainy day as opposed to maximizing the day, doing whatever it is that God wanted me to fulfill. And then knowing that tomorrow is going to take care of itself. And so being in that environment, being in that space, I mean, you kind of you take things for granted, but you feel like you're going to be able to run it up or run it back anytime you want to, and that's really not how life works. So that was that.
That is so true. Because we do, and that's God does, you know, each day take care of his own. And I know you're a big giver. You always helping people. I mean, you've called me. I have this person that I've met who's sleeping in his car. I have somebody who can you help him with a job? I just paid for somebody to get a room. You know, I know your heart is big and you give because that's just in you. And I appreciate that because God is a God who I think every single day God gives us is to serve somebody, to love on somebody, to bless somebody every day. I don't care if it's a call or it doesn't matter because it's not always about the monetary. Um, means of how we exist and how we love on people. But we should be a blessing every single day. But I love your heart and how you serve and how you give. Um, and just being a blessing. Because I know you know that through our blessings is being obedient to God. Because that's, and that's who Jesus is. He served, he gave to the point of his own life. And so, with that being said, for what we give is so minute compared to what he gave us. But that love is what he pours in us so that we can get that love out to the people, and that just glorify him and builds him up. And so love is an action word. And I always say that is it's what you do. It's not what just comes out your mouth, but it's what you back it up with once that you speak the words, or don't even speak the word, but it's in what you do. But I know your heart is big. And
Yeah, I
that's
just want.
that's a, that's a true gift for you.
I was gonna say I just want whatever God has for me. I mean, because again, no man knows the day, time, nor the hour, and so I want Him to be able to utilize me for as long as possible. Because I don't know when I'm going to be taken away. I want to live as long as God will allow me to see my son, great great granddad will be
Yeah.
fire to hear. And who knows? I want to be in the best of shape doing that. So I'm working. That's also part of my journey. Is my health side. But
Yeah.
being in that environment, in that space, I want to be able to know that, hey, God was, he might have had this time frame for me if I kept up that behavior. But because he know I'm still taking care of his children, my brothers or sisters in Christ, then I know that's something that, he can use me. I'm an asset and not a liability. So as long as I'm doing the right thing and making right decisions. And I feel like being obedient and making sure that people who really truly need to either hear the word, need some encouragement, need a place to stay, need some food, whatever the case may be, that he knows that, okay, I know who I for certain I can rely on. And Jay is going to go cross paths with this person, or I'm going to send them and to him. However God does it, he orchestrates things differently. But I know that whenever he puts anyone in front of me, he knows that I'm going to bless them because that's just who he created. So I just want to add that I want to be able to be here as long as possible doing God's will. I think I told you I want to stand in ovation whenever it's my time when I get to heaven. I want him to be like, yo, everybody on their feet,
Yeah.
man. Here come my boy.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we've
Yeah.
been watching you. Yeah, we love what we saw down there, man. Listen, he finally home. That's what I want,
I
and I know I'm
love
gonna get.
it. That's beautiful, Jay. Um, and you did share that with me, and that just job well done. Um, but I also want to ask you this, and that is for those that are listening and who's chasing out there, what man has decided, you to chase your happiness. What advice can you or will you give to people who are listening?
Advice I would give to people who are listening is you have to live for the long term, which is the kingdom, and not live for what you feel like is paradise here on earth. You do have good moments, you're going to go through good experiences, but even back in the Bible, holistically, for the most part, the earth is corrupt. The world is dangerous. It's full of people doing all kind of bad things. There's some good ones. Even when you go back and think about Noah, he had to flood the whole earth, but it
Yeah.
was just him that he liked, and he hated or despised everyone else. And so, and again, I won't retract the word hate because he loved everyone. That's why he was disappointed in them. So he didn't hate them, but he
Mm-hmm.
had to start fresh. But I want to be like Noah. And so the advice I would give is to be a leader, be someone that looks to please God. Pleasing God ultimately will please man. If you love the way God loved, if you share it the way God shared, if you are as considerate or as compassionate, have empathy, help somebody walking across the street, anything small. And I mention that just because that's just a kind gesture, but we're
Right.
all God's children. And so
Mm-hmm.
seek him, seek his happiness, seek pleasing him. Pleasing him will please everyone else. And if it doesn't, it's okay. I mean, they hated Jesus and he was perfect. So you're never going to make sure everyone is happy. But if you still push forward with that mindset, then for the most part, people who are supposed to rock with you, they're going to rock with you. But God is going to love you even more. And he's ultimately the one that you want to please. So put your focus and your attention on doing what he wants you to do. pray, ask him to speak to you so you'll know how to move and you're not moving just aimlessly. Because also finding purpose has a lot to do with for being fulfilled. If you don't know what you're doing in life or where you're going or whatever it is you're created for, you can have all the money, the cars, the girls, and still be unfulfilled, still be unhappy. Or you can be operating your purpose with nothing and wake up with zeal and enthusiasm and a vigor to hit the ground running because you know ultimately it's gonna pay off. He's not showing you something just so you can just dream about it and then he pull you while the plug, I mean pull you while you're still doing your thing. He's going to make sure that you see it through. He gave you a vision. And as long as you're operating in that journey and being obedient, he's gonna give you the satisfaction of completing it. And one thing also is God gets credit. It's not credit. God gets the glory from you being
Mhm.
successful. If
Oh,
you
yeah.
follow God and nothing ever came out of that, and I'm trying to convince you to come to Christ and you fall on your face until you pass away, I don't want to follow Christ. But if I follow Christ and you see that I have my struggles and I get my footing and then I shoot to the moon, and now y'all went from looking down at me to looking up at me, and I keep saying God's name, I think I'm gonna be able to get y'all up here with me, cause y'all gonna see that I've surpassed y'all with whatever y'all was on, and I serve a bigger God than whatever faith y'all was putting you all's emphasis on. Come see me upstairs. And so I think that that part is also super, super important because
Absolutely.
he wants the glory of knowing
Mhm.
that, hey, following me doesn't also always guarantee that things are going to end up working in your favor at that time, but over time they ultimately do.
Absolutely. And I love how you said too, because you didn't say anything wrong with the fact that you can have all those things, but it's when you have all those things and you know who gave you all those things, who made it all
Absolutely.
possible. Because I'm speaking boldly about God. So it's not like I'm boasting about my stuff. I'm boasting what God has provided for me. And so when you putting him ahead of all of that, and I think that's where people lose sight of, and that is when they're chasing happiness. You're chasing happiness as if it's only you getting there and not that God creating a way and providing it for you, making that path for you, clearing things away so that you can get to that place of success of what man decide and define as success, which is stuff, um, because they leave God out. And you just saying there's nothing wrong with it, but you got to put God in it. You got to
He
put
give you the
God in it.
desires.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
definitely give you the desires of your heart as long as if it
Mhm.
aligns with his will. If you think about the people in the Bible, even down to Job, who God said, hey, you can touch Job, just don't kill him.
Mhm.
And Job was up. Like I don't know what that would equate to into
Mhm.
today's time, but he was super up, lost
Mhm.
everything. Well, almost everything, and which feels the same. And God gave
Oh,
him
yeah.
everything back. And so, one thing about God, I think He wants us to live our best life. He wants us to live well. He wants us to see heaven on earth. What better experience it is to get whatever it is He created to operate, to make it work in the best capacity for us. And so, I definitely think that He wants us to live good. Now, again, does it mean that we all are? No. God gave each one of us different journeys. So, if you're doing it for the, hey, I want the castle, I want the pie in the sky, then you might be disappointed because that may not be what God has for you. But I truly do believe that even if that's not what He has for you, you're going to still be well off. You're not going to be hurting. You're going to be at peace. And I think that you're going to be content with what you have as you strive for
Mhm.
more, if that's what you want. But I do absolutely believe that He wants us to live our best life here on earth.
Exactly.
Following Him comes with a reward.
And something you said that resonated, and that is God doesn't always give you the same journey. He doesn't always give you the same. Your journey is your journey, and your journey may have a lot more of the stuff. But in somebody else's journey who believe in God just as you believe in God and strong in your relationship with him in the whole bit, who might God, their journey may have less. But that's why I think it's so important that we don't get so caught up looking at what somebody else have and then getting to the place where you want to, I'm not gonna say curse God, but you want to turn your back on God because you don't understand. I'm doing what this person doing, but you're giving this person this. And so why you give me so little? Because what you just said, your journey isn't someone else's journey. My journey is my own journey, and your journey is your journey. But God does not divide things equally because He places us in different positions. But everything that God places and everything that God does, He does strategically and He does with purpose. And so, whatever is still gained and what the ultimate thing is, I truly believe, regardless of what journey you're on, is always is to glorify Him. It's always so that you can see Him and have that relationship with Him. And stuff should not dictate whether or not you have an intimate relationship with God or you don't have an intimate relationship with God. Just knowing who He is, but and what He pours in you. That's what's really vital above everything else. Because stuff comes and stuff goes. But your relationship with God is something that's within you. And that's something that we should all strive for if you really want that relationship with Him. And that is that wholeness with Him, that fullness with Him. And don't let
He
it.
removed those things from you.
Mhm. No, go
He
ahead.
removed them. Yeah, if you putting emphasis on those things, yeah, he get up out of there just because he want you to make sure that the love for him is first, and you can appreciate those things. But you shouldn't appreciate God and then love those things. And sometimes we move backwards, and when we do so, we have to be reminded.
Mhm. Exactly. And I know we was talking before, and even though you have less now, but you found that place and you're in that place where a place of harmony. Um, just share a little bit about that before we wrap everything up.
Honestly, actually, it's crazy. I may have physically less, but I feel like I have more.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being in that space, I mean, I didn't necessarily need all those things. One thing that you realize is you start obtaining and hoarding things that, I mean, if you think back in the day, one or two pair of shoes really was sufficient. When you start adding five, six, seven, however, I mean, sure, people closets are crazy, but
50 or 100. Yeah.
the reality of it is, I mean, it's just it's stuff. It's none of these things are going to add any value to your life. And when you die, they'll be given to someone else, and you worked your butt out for it. That someone else is going to have, and they don't even have to do the work that you did. The moths are going to eat it up, put holes in your shoes. All this stuff means nothing. God created everything, and so stuff is just really a byproduct of good fruit or good sowing. That's the good fruit. And so when you forget that the seed is planted by God, then yeah, you put those emphasis on those things. And so being in that space is just something that you have to keep in check, because you can start from the bottom, work your way up, and stop doing the things that you did to get where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And God has to settle the score when that happens, because it's never the intent. So certain, again, using the word humility, certain humility you have to have, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a certain um I don't even want to know what word, but you just have to make sure that you don't forget where you come from, regardless of how big you get. And that's something that he wants us to remember, because that was Solomon's, his whole plight. I mean, he got up and then he's turned his back on God. And so if you think about it, if the wisest man in the world could fall victim to the serpent and fall victim to the chaos of your character, then we all doomed, because this is the wisest man to ever live. He knew every move in every situation. People saw him from near and far. And if he can be duped out and bamboozled and then hoodwinked, then yeah, you got to bask in the word every day. You got to stay devoted every day. You got to meditate on it every day, because it's a daily struggle. That's why God speaks in the daily. It's in the now. I'm going to make sure you're good now. I'm going to make sure you eat now. And so that's really where it comes down to. But yeah, you have to commit, and you have to make sure that you give him his time, deliberately set aside, I was going to mention some time frame, but everybody's different. But you have to be, again, intentional with seeking God. And once you do that and you make him a daily part of, who you are and what you do,
Mhm.
it's the best way. It's like a girlfriend. And if I was somebody's boyfriend and she said she liked me and I reached out and she didn't hit me back or she let days lapse in between, the action you're showing me is you really don't like me like that. And so what you get from me is you're gonna pretty much get what you give me. Same thing with God. He's never gonna leave us. He's never gonna forsake us. But it's like a relationship. If you tap in with God only when you need him, he's not really gonna be as available. He's gonna be there, but you're not
Mhm.
going to feel his presence. But if you seek
Mhm.
him like a real relationship, you talk to him daily throughout the day,
Yes.
you pray
Yeah.
often, you in the word often,
Mhm.
then yes, you're going to experience a joy like never before. That's where harmony comes from. That's
Yes.
deliberate. That's something that you do on your own. You can't
Mhm.
haphazardly fall into that situation and you can't do it lukewarm. Now, also keep in mind, you're not going to always get it right. So I had to learn this too. Give myself some grace and mercy. I'm going to fumble along the way. Even though I have no distractions,
Mhm.
I'm still going to make mistakes. I'm going to sin every day. But God promises that once I repent, he forgives and he forgets. And so you give yourself the same grace. Don't be so hard on yourself. Understand that it comes with getting to the end zone. Pick the ball back up and keep running. God just want to see you get back on track. I feel that was good.
I love it. I love it. And honestly, with that being said, that's to me is a great way, a perfect way to end this episode. And I just want to say thank you. I thank you for your testimony. I thank you for your story, and I thank you for your genuineness, and I thank you for your truth. Um, and I just really hope your words uh, haven't that will literally inspire somebody. And I even hope it's many that are listening, but to encourage them and just to know that just because you're stripped of everything, and sometimes you may not be a few things, God literally may strip you of everything and just leave you one thing, and that's life. But know that if He does that, don't get so caught up on what you had and not still see what you have. And that is still the opportunity to still get it right. And so,
I,
oh,
I
go
do want
ahead.
to add something.
Mhm.
Just because again, I don't know who's listening, but I do want to add that when you start, because people that's probably not even on a spiritual journey, and there's some that's probably was on it that fell off, but please understand y'all have to be steadfast because when you circle back to God, if you lost him or not, you're going to go through things. Those things are to test your sincerity in your search, to test your genuineness in what you're seeking after. If you really don't want it, you're going to allow those obstacles to be the death to you. You're going to allow them to defeat you, and you're going to go back into your old ways and get caught in those same snares and traps. Push through the adversity. Understand that anything new or anything that you have not done consistently, you're going to get that pushback. You're going to get those battles. You're going to get those doors slammed in your face. You're going to go through a lot of adversity, but that's God allowing life to happen to test Him. I promise you, you can get over that fence. Like the grass is greener on the other side. So push through. Understand that finding God means you're going to find a lot of other things along the way, but don't let that keep you from pushing through and seeing His goodness. God loves you. He's not going to forsake you. And that's one thing that he does promise us. So stay in that space, keep grinding, and just don't remember that there's nothing you can do to lose God's love. There's no action too big that causes you to get derailed and turn his back on you. Don't think that he's a lukewarm God. No, he's not like that. He's not changing like the wind. He's not blowing in every different direction. He's going to be there whether you want him to be or not. He's just not going to speak or be present unless you invite him in. He's that
Mhm.
God that's right there, hoping that hey, I got a seat for you. I made your plate. He's not going to say, I would like to eat with you. Invite him in.
Love that. Wow. Thank you. I mean, that was definitely food for thought, for sure. Because I know it's a struggle for a lot of people, and it's going to be a struggle. But like you're saying, but stay the course and just know that God is not has not yet. He's not forsaken you. He's still present, and so it's for you. But it's always a test because He's testing your commitment to Him. It's not just the words you're speaking, not just the thought, but it's in what you do. So I appreciate you. I just appreciate you for sharing more powerful information shared. And I just like I said, I can't tell your story like you tell your story because it's yours. Mine is my story, yours is yours, but you told it beautifully. And I thank you for that. I want to invite others to visit my website at www.sharewithcharlotte.com and be a part of my podcast community. And I look forward to sharing another episode with you next week. And I would love for you to join me on YouTube and just please tag in as far as subscribe, follow, and leave your comments and your messages. I would love to know what your thoughts are and what you thought about this particular episode. So be inspired, be encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Mhm.